Guys, so I'm trying to do this video very quickly. It's about to storm here and I'm trying to use the last little inkling of light I have left, but I felt like this is a really important topic that I wanted to touch on. So there is many reasons why your makeup might be looking bad. It could be that your makeup is breaking up and separating in certain areas. Your makeup might be textured or looking very cakey, and there's several reasons why this might be happening. So hopefully today this video will help you and resolve those issues. So the first thing that I always tell my clients, and I feel like this is the most important thing that gets overlooked, is skincare and skin prep before you apply your makeup. So one of the biggest things that I always get asked is, what makeup primer do I use? And I don't actually use a makeup primer. I use skin prep, because the thing is, what I always tell my clients is your makeup is only gonna look as good as your skin does underneath. So if you're having a lot of issues with your skin, you're just putting makeup over top of it that's gonna accentuate those problems. So a lot of times people associate makeup with covering things, but a lot of times makeup can accentuate certain things like texture and lines and even like breakouts. You might be able to cover the pigment, but if you notice, sometimes it makes the bump look way more apparent. So the biggest thing is skin prep. So like I said, I do not use a primer. Every day before I do my makeup, I always use Sonia Roselli Skin Prep. So if you're not familiar with her skincare, she makes skincare specifically for preparing your skin for makeup. So I use this on my clients. I use it personally. So what I use is I usually use her water balm. And then if I'm feeling really dry, I'll use her Intense Barrier Cream, which is just a little bit more of a hydrating cream than this one. But this one's really great too. And I have very dry skin. And I use this one though religiously on clients. Like I have to have this in my kit at all times. And then I also love her water oil. So I always use this. And I also have a water elixir that I use, but I'm out of it right now. I'm waiting for it to get here. It's currently being shipped right now. But I use these religiously, and I swear it has changed my makeup game. It just makes my makeup apply so much better. Any dryness, any texture I have, it just vanishes when I use this skin prep. But like I said, just the most important thing is having good skincare. Next, you have to make sure you're not using products that are conflicting with each other. Say you're using a silicone-based primer, but then you're using a water-based foundation. Those two things don't really mix. They kind of mix like oil and water, so your makeup is gonna separate. So a lot of times, I know before I became a licensed esthetician, I had a really hard time figuring this out. I'm like, how do I know if it's water-based? How do I know if it's silicone-based? So I'm gonna teach you a really easy trick that has always stuck with me since I went to esthetician school years ago, and that is to look for ingredients that have the word cone in it. So for example, my sunscreen is a silicone-based sunscreen. So this isn't a primer, so you gotta think about everything you're putting on your face. I wear this sunscreen every single day. So I know a lot of water-based foundations aren't gonna work for me because I love my sunscreen and I'm not changing it. So I usually stick with silicone-based foundations. So for example, there is dimethicone in this. So I know it is a silicone-based product. And then I just got the Haus Labs foundation. This is a silicone-based foundation, and how I know that, it has trimethicone in it. So again, look at those cone words, trimethicone, dimethicone. So any word that ends with cone, it's going to be a silicone-based product. And that's just an easy trick to know what you're putting on your face. So if you don't really see cone, it's most likely a water-based product. And water is gonna be one of the first ingredients that you're gonna see when it's a water-based product. So if you notice that your makeup is breaking down all the time and you're like, what is going on? I'm setting it, I'm putting powder. Look at the ingredients, because you might be putting conflicting products on that aren't working well together and they're not playing nice with each other. Another thing that you could be doing that might be causing you to look a little cakey is applying too many products, layering too many products. So there's a lot of people that might use correctors and things before they apply foundation. So you want to apply everything in very thin layers. You don't want to just cake everything on. So I always think about nail polish. When you put on a ton of layers of nail polish, it never seems to dry. But also when you put on like another coat of it, it always kind of removes the coat underneath of it. And I feel like that kind of happens with makeup sometimes. So when you keep layering a product, you're going to get a patchy look to your face because it's going to start removing some product. There's some products that just don't layer well together. So if you put foundation all over your face and you really put foundation underneath your eyes and then you follow it up with a concealer on top, it's gonna might give you a cakey look. I have some foundations that layer really well with concealer, and then I have some foundations where I know to kind of avoid the under eye area and just put concealer there because it's gonna avoid that cakey, heavy look. So I try to avoid foundation in this area and just focus my concealer there. Or if you're kind of like setting and you're really putting a lot of powder on, sometimes you're gonna get get that like broken up look underneath your eyes. So it's always less is more, and you want to kind of just gradually build it up and just lightly set with some powder. Like I said earlier, a lot of times makeup can accentuate things. So if you have things like fine lines and texture, the more makeup you're applying, it's going to look more accentuated. A lot of the times when I have a mature client come sit in my seat, I'm not going to put a full coverage foundation on her. Typically, I use a lighter formula for people that are older. And even as I've aged, I don't gravitate towards full coverage foundations like I used to. I use more like tinted moisturizers now and BB creams, because those really full coverage foundations look very heavy. And sometimes they really accentuate my pores and fine lines and texture that I have and dryness that I have. And that may have not been that way in my 20s, but now in my 30s, I can't wear those really heavy products anymore. So you might have to start transitioning and changing your makeup the older you become, or if you have some texture and things like that, you might want to switch it up and try something just a little bit lighter for your skin. Then finally, this is more like tips and tricks on how to get your makeup more skin-like looking. So instead of just finishing with a setting powder and leaving it be, start using setting sprays. So the ones that I really gravitate towards are the Tarte Shape Tape Stay Spray. And I really love, it's so dirty because it's been used a million times, but my All Nighter Urban Decay Setting Spray. These are the two that I really gravitate towards. But even something like a MAC Fix Plus, this might not necessarily make your makeup last longer, but it's gonna take away that powdery look. And then I know a lot of times it's always like, oh, you have to put powders over top of creams and you can't mix the two. You can't put a cream over top of the powder. That's not always true. And I know there's a lot of products on the market now that are actually marketed towards that, where you use the cream after the powder. So something like my nude sticks, after I'm done powdering my face, I'll just take a little bit on my finger and I'll just slightly just kind of tap it. And it just gives such like a seamless look that looks like skin, and it doesn't look like I have a bunch of powder on my face. I'm not using a mirror, so I'm using my viewfinder on my phone, so I might be looking crazy, but this is what I do all the time with my cream products. So I will finish with like a cream based product on my cheeks, and it just gives it more of a little bit of a glow and a skin like finish than putting powder on my face. And also things like creamier textured highlights, things like I love the Living Luminizer by RMS. It's just like a little tiny one of it, but this gives you such like a pretty skin like glow, and it takes away any powdery look. And I've talked about this in another video, but the Honest Magic Beauty Balm, I love this stuff because it just kind of gives you like a skin-like glow that you can put over top if you're feeling like you're looking a little powdery and textured. Products like these are going to smooth out that texture, give you more like a skin-like finish. And I always set with a setting spray instead of just the powder. And you can still powder your face, but just finish with the setting spray. So that way it takes away any type of powdery look that you might have. So anyway, guys, I hope these tips and tricks help and you're able to use them in your makeup routine.